This was night 14, 2 straight weeks of the 2:13 a.m. pickup. At first, Ethan thought he was losing his mind. Sleep deprivation from working the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift can play ugly tricks on a man's eyes. But ghosts don't pull the stop request cord. Ghosts don't leave wet patches on the vinyl seats. The real horror had begun on night 3 when Ethan wasn't alone. He remembered it vividly. A couple of rowdy drunk college kids from Old Dominion University had boarded closer to the city center, reeking of cheap tequila and shouting over each other. When the clock struck 2:13 a.m. and the bell rang, Ethan had pulled over. The wet man got on. The college kids hadn't stopped talking. One of them had actually reached out to toss an empty aluminium can into the trash bin right next to where the man was standing. The kid's arm had passed directly through the space where the man's shoulder should have been. No flinch, no reaction. "Dude, you see that guy?" Ethan had whispered frantically to the kid when they stopped at a red light. The kid had looked back, blinked his bloodshot eyes and laughed. "What guy, man? It's just us and the depressing smell of your air freshener." They couldn't see him. They couldn't smell the Dead Sea. To the rest of the world, Route 9 was empty. But to Ethan, the mirror never lied. Every time he glanced up, the dark silhouette was there, sitting in the back, waiting. By night 20, the routine had chipped away at Ethan's sanity. He couldn't sleep during the day. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the digital dashboard ticking towards 2:13. His wife, Sarah, told him he looked like a walking corpse. "Just quit, Ethan," she'd pleaded over dinner, looking at the dark purple bruises of exhaustion under his eyes. "It's just a city job. Go back to local hauling." "I can't," he whispered. He couldn't explain it to her. There was a tether, a terrifying invisible wire pulling him to that bus every night. He felt like if he didn't show up at 2:13 a.m., whatever was waiting on Route 60 would come looking for him at home. Tonight, night 21, the air in the bus felt heavier than usual. The humidity was suffocating. The defroster blasted hot air against the windshield, but a layer of frost was somehow forming on the inside of the side windows. Ethan glanced at the mirror. The passenger wasn't staring ahead anymore. His hooded head was tilted up. He was looking directly into the rearview mirror, directly at Ethan. Under the shadow of the hood, Ethan caught the faint, watery glint of eyes. Not human eyes. They were wide, unblinking and milky white, like the eyes of a deep-sea fish brought to the surface too quickly. A sharp metallic tang filled Ethan's mouth. Fear, pure animal adrenaline surged through his veins. He pressed his foot harder on the gas pedal. The heavy bus lurched forward, engine roaring as it hit 55, then 60 on a road meant for 35. Just get to the end of the route, Ethan told himself, his hands shaking violently on the wheel. Just reach the downtown terminal. There are lights there, security guards, reality. Then the bus's electrical system flickered. The overhead fluorescent tubes buzzed, popped and died, plunging the cabin into near total darkness, saved only by the weak green glow of the dashboard clock. 2:30 a.m. The route should have ended 10 minutes ago. Ethan looked out the windshield. The road wasn't Route 60 anymore. The asphalt was gone, replaced by a narrow, crumbling spit of sand. On either side, the dark ocean waves were crashing violently, spraying salt water against the side mirrors. The fog had turned into a thick, swirling vortex. "What is this?" Ethan screamed, slamming his foot on the brake. The brake screamed, a horrific metal-on-metal screech, but the bus didn't slow down. It kept coasting forward, propelled by a force that had nothing to do with internal combustion. Squelch. It was the sound of wet leather moving against vinyl. Ethan's eyes darted at the mirror. The back seat was empty. Squelch, squelch. The sound was closer now, mid-bus. "Stop it!" Ethan yelled, tearing his eyes away from the mirror and staring fixedly at the terrifying landscape outside. The sand spit was narrowing. The ocean was swallowing the path. "Get off my bus! Get the hell off!" Squelch. The smell hit him like a physical blow. It was overwhelming now. The stench of a whale carcass rotting on a beach, mingled with ice and ancient stagnant depths. The air temperature inside the driver's cab plummeted. Ethan's breath bloomed in thick white plumes. A shadow fell over the dashboard, blotting out the green light of the clock. Ethan froze, every muscle in his body locked up in primal horror. The passenger was standing right beside the driver's seat. Slowly, agonizingly, the figure leaned down. The navy blue hood fell back just an inch. Ethan wanted to scream, but his lungs were filled with ice. The face was a nightmare of drowning. The skin was translucent, bloated and slick with a gelatinous slime. Hair like black seaweed clung to a malformed skull. But it was the mouth that made Ethan's soul leave his body. The jaw was unhinged, stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of needle-thin translucent teeth like those of an anglerfish. From the depths of that rotting watery throat came a sound. It wasn't a voice, it was the sound of grinding stones, of shifting tectonic plates at the bottom of the sea, and the muffled echoing screams of 1,000 drowning men. The creature raised a dripping pale hand. Its fingers were webbed, tipped with ragged black nails. It pointed a finger not at Ethan, but at the steering wheel. Then it spoke, a single gurgling word that echoed inside Ethan's brain. Home.
Ethan looked out the windshield. The sand spit had ended. Ahead lay nothing but a sheer drop into the roaring, pitch-black Atlantic Ocean. The headlights illuminated the crest of a massive, roiling wave waiting to swallow them whole. He tried to turn the wheel. He tried to pull the emergency brake, but his arms wouldn't obey him. His hands were locked onto the steering wheel, steering the bus perfectly straight, accelerating into the abyss. He looked down at his own hands. Under the dim dashboard light, his skin looked pale, swollen. The veins beneath his flesh were turning a dark, bruised blue, spreading like seaweed across his wrists. With a final, terrifying clarity, Ethan looked at the digital clock one last time. The numbers were spinning backward. The bus plunged off the edge. There was no crash, no impact, just a sudden, terrifying silence as the heavy vehicle entered the black water. The freezing ocean rushed through the floorboards, rising to Ethan's ankles, his knees, his chest. He turned his head to look at the passenger next to him, but the creature was gone. Instead, the bus was full. Every single seat was now occupied. Dozens of pale, bloated figures sat rigidly in the dark, their milky eyes staring straight ahead, their lungs filled with the sea. And as the water rose over Ethan's chin, he felt the unhinged jaw of his own mouth begin to drop, his teeth sharpening into needles. Epilogue. The Hampton Roads Transit Authority issued a press release 3 days later regarding the mysterious disappearance of Bus 409 and its driver Ethan Cross. A massive search and rescue operation along Route 60 yielded nothing. No tire tracks, no debris, no signs of an accident. It was as if the vehicle had simply vanished off the face of the earth. A month later, a new driver, a young guy named Marcus, was assigned to the graveyard shift of Route 9. It was a miserable, foggy Virginia night. Marcus adjusted the heater, sipping a Red Bull to stay awake as he drove down the lonely stretch of Route 60. He liked the quiet. It gave him time to think. At 2:13 a.m., a sharp ding echoed through the cabin. Marcus frowned, looking at the interior mirror. The bus was completely empty. He hadn't passed a designated stop. "Must be a shot in the wire," Marcus muttered, slowing the bus down anyway as he approached a dark turnout by the beach. He pulled the lever and the pneumatic doors hissed open, letting in a gust of freezing, salt-water-scented air. Marcus waited for a second, looking out into the foggy dark. Nobody was there. He shook his head and reached for the lever to close the door, but stopped. A heavy, wet squelch sounded from the stepwell. Marcus looked down. A man in a dripping, oversized navy blue peacoat was stepping onto the bus.
He didn't pay a fare. He didn't look at Marcus. He just glided past the driver's pit, leaving a trail of black, briny water on the floor. "Hey man," Marcus called out, a sudden, inexplicable chill running down his spine. "You gotta scan a pass." The passenger didn't answer. He walked straight to the back row and took the window seat on the driver's side. Marcus shivered, turning up the bus's heater to maximum, though it did nothing to cut the sudden, graveyard cold in the air. He looked up at the rearview mirror to catch the guy's eye. The passenger in the back row was sitting perfectly still. But he wasn't alone. Sitting right next to him was a second figure. It was a man wearing a faded transit driver's uniform, his skin bloated and translucent, his eyes wide and milky white. The ghost driver looked up into the mirror, caught Marcus's gaze, and peeled his lips back in a wide, needle-toothed smile. Marcus's heart stopped. He lunged for the door lever, but his hand froze an inch away. His fingers wouldn't move. His wrists were turning a dark seaweed green. Slowly, Marcus's foot pressed down on the gas pedal, and Route 9 rolled forward into the dark.